Fresh new haircut, new location, new businesses, a couple of new sponsors coming up too. So it's time to start afresh with episode 1 of a new series of What the Tech, where we answer your tech questions. Today's question: how should you respond to a cyber attack? And this could also be used as a guide for how your IT provider should also be responding to a form of breach or cyber attack in your business. Welcome back. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel, and if this is your first time visiting, please do consider subscribing for more videos about tech, business, gadgets, all of that kind of stuff. Do you know the single most frustrating thing about working in IT? Maybe it's the fact that actually switching things off and on again fixes like 110% of issues, or that there's a conspiracy that the only reason viruses exist are because the people who make the virus software also write the viruses. No, the single most frustrating thing about working in IT is seeing when other people who work in IT do a really bad job. Seeing people who think that doing IT is just a case of throwing in some antivirus and migrating someone to Office 365 or Gmail and then it's done. Because it's not. It's way more than that. Actually, I'll give you a moment to drop something into the comments. Tell me about a horror story you've experienced with some expert doing something they obviously weren't an expert on. Oh wait. And we all know that, right? We all know that just like every other business out there, you need expertise to do what you do. Lawyers have to pass the bar. Accountants are regulated by becoming chartered accountants. But IT companies aren't. To become a registered Microsoft partner, all you have to do is pay them the annual fee. And as you work your way up to silver and gold partners, you only really need a few qualifications, and again, you just pay Microsoft more money. There are no true regulations or guidelines, just the perception to the customers that they're doing a good job. So they then sell more product, they get great feedback, which then lets them climb those ladders with the likes of Microsoft even further. Oh, wow. Rant over, or kind of not over, because on that exact same topic, today we are going to talk about cyber attacks, and more specifically how you or your IT company should be responding when you get hit by ransomware or virus or phishing or whatever it might be. And this is something really close to my heart, as it's something we saw time and time again in my last business when speaking to new customers. They'd have a breach, all of their machines would get encrypted, their IT guys would restore everything, and then a few months later, the exact same thing would happen again. So what are they doing wrong? And to answer that, here is my 4-step plan to recover from a cyber attack. Step 1, you need to react. Unplug the internet, disconnect the network from your machine, switch off your computers, switch off your servers, whatever you need to do to contain the breach and stop that issue from spreading. If one of your PCs has been infected, ransomware, then it might actually be slowly working its way across the network. And this is the exact reason why regular staff should not have admin permissions to their computers. Even though it might frustrate you not to have full access, limit the access, limit the risk, stay home, save lives. If it's a concern over a breach of email security, then you can lock the email accounts out from any form of external access, change the passwords on any account you think is breached to prevent anything further from occurring. But generally just look at the issue you're experiencing and take the right steps to lock off access. And then step 2, fix it. You need to find the source of the attack. Typically it will come from a particular PC or a user, and some easy ways to see this are to look at which user has modified the files which are now encrypted if it's a ransomware infection, and it will likely point you to the source of the infection. For compromised email accounts, you can do some digging, follow the email chain if you're dealing with emails that have been intercepted and have bank details changed. And then once you find the source of the attack, then you can disconnect it from the network, reset the user passwords, and get to work on restoring everything from backups, because you do have a backup, right? And of course, steps 1 and 2 can be done at the same time. I can think of many times we've been finding the root of the problem, and in parallel we'd be fixing things, resetting passwords, running wide-scale virus scans on everything, more out of precaution than anything, just to be safe. And depending on the exact attack you've experienced, you may feel that these are still necessary. And then on to step 3, the vital step 3 that is the one sole reason why so many IT companies fail right here. Step 3 is the never again step. You sit down, you look at what happened, and you reflect on what you did, and you now put in steps to make sure this particular attack never happens again. Technical things like tightening up your permissions, locking down firewall rules, and generally blocking however that thing made its way into your network in the first place. But also non-technical things like investing in some regular training for your staff to teach them about phishing emails, training them on how to spot them so that the likelihood of them clicking on one of those again is much, much lower. And this is the one step that is vital to ensuring that you learn from any mistakes. And so many companies, IT companies specifically, so many companies just don't get it and they miss it. Don't just expect to fix the issue and everything goes back to normal, because it's only a matter of time. And if you have suffered a breach and your IT provider hasn't come back to you with a clear explanation on what's happened, how it got through, and what steps they've taken to prevent this happening again in future, maybe it's time to start looking around. And that is, yes, admittedly sometimes difficult to figure out the source of where it's come in. There are, of course, some technical limitations. If it's an issue you've been having for a long time, it's been in your network for a while, well, logs don't always go back far enough to identify where it's come from. But at least an educated guess, and again, putting steps in place to avoid it happening once again. And finally, step 4, and that is to report it. You do have an obligation to report this breach to the authority so they are aware and they can provide any support that you might need. And even if all you become is a statistic for them, it helps them assign appropriate resources in future for others that get hit with similar things. But also don't forget that you have an obligation to report this to the likes of the ICO and your own customers if there has been a breach of your own customer data, or you face serious fines if you don't. Much like you've undoubtedly probably received already in your email when someone's had a breach or a hack or something's happened to them, you've probably received an email to let you know that yes, we were breached and some data was stolen. Your data may have been included in some of the data, so we recommend you reset your passwords, change your bank details, whatever it might be, to protect yourself from that breach. Those are my 4 steps that I recommend when dealing with a breach. And if you wanted to learn more about how you should be protecting your IT, then might I recommend my very first slightly cringy video, which is all about how to protect yourself. And there's a whole series of videos which I'll link to down below, which talk about all of those areas in much more detail. Again, consider subscribing if you want to see more. Like the video if you did, and I'd really appreciate that if you could drop a comment below, as I believe the engagement really helps the channel get seen by more people. Once again, thanks for watching. See you on the next video. Bye bye.